serious. Have any redditors here witnessed a murder? If so, what happened? A guy fresh from prison carjacked an SUV with a young boy in the back seat. Mom tried to get him out, but the shoulder strap of his seatbelt was behind him. He got caught and twisted in the belt, outside the car. The guy took off dragging the kid down the highway, hopefully killing him instantly. He passed us after several miles and we chased him down, blocked him in at an intersection, and dragged him out, holding him for police. 20 years ago next week on my 34th wedding anniversary. I can see it like it was yesterday. I worked with locals in Iraq from a JSS just off Camp Taji. I had a local come in to make a report about his brother being killed by the Jaish al-Mahdi Special Groups people. He had a DVD that they gave him. It was a video of them sawing his head off while he was still alive. I watched it with him. I sat with him and watched with him as his brother died, again. I wouldn't recommend it. Sole eyewitness, not a rickroll. I promise. It happened the Monday after Thanksgiving weekend, so our deposit was larger than normal. The theater wasn't open yet, so all the lobby doors were locked. Only one specific door was allowed to be unlocked by a manager to let employees and service workers in and out. I was in the middle of locking the door behind Keith when I heard the pop. 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 I looked up and saw blood and brain matter come out of Keith's head. When I was 13, I was in a trip to Washington State as part of a church group that would help out on an Indian reservation. In our trek from the Midwest, our train stopped in Portland, and to keep things short, our whole group saw a man get stabbed in the neck, walk 5 feet before yelling help and falling to the ground. Then our bus took off to go to the Saturday market. My BFF's husband's best friend. Let's call him Tony. We were all at a barbecue in the back of their building celebrating my godson's first communion. Another man, who had done work for Tony's parents, also lived in the building. He felt he had been unfairly paid for that work and took Tony's parents to court. He won $3 of the $8,000 he was asking for, losing, in his mind, $5,000. He came out in the middle of the barbecue and shot Tony with an old rifle he owned. Tony died instantly. It was a lucky shot to the heart. For $5,000. Tony was only 34 and completely uninvolved. I was driving one day and at a red light, 2 cars in front of me. Guy in the car immediately in front of me gets out and walks up to the window of the guy at the very front. I'm thinking maybe he bumped into him or something and wants to quickly exchange info. Nope. Dude pulls out a gun and fires off 2 shots before running back into his car and speeding off. As soon as he reached into his jacket for the gun, my heart sank and I kinda knew what was happening, but I didn't actually process it until the guy sped off. Craziest thing about it to me was that multiple cars behind and beside me also witnessed it but just drove off like nothing happened. Guess they didn't want to get dragged into things? Lived in a bad area of South London as a teenager. Saw dead bodies from various things such as guy ran over by bus, stabbing victim, etc. But one time I was in my local co-op supermarket, and walked out to see 2 big lads beefing and one pulling out a knife and stabbing the other 3 times. I remember the guy who got stabbed made a noise similar to the oof sound effect and just crumpled to the ground. The stabber kind of just ran off with dozens of people looking at him screaming, then ambulances and police sirens pulling up in about 2 minutes. My Catholic mother thought I was buying drugs with her milk money because I was late home. Pretty sure we did driving home one night. There was a car pulled over on the side of the road and someone was lying on the ground behind it. We pulled over a little past the car to see if they needed any help. My husband told me to call 911 while he got out to help. Right as he got out of our car, the other car quickly backed both sets of tires over the person on the ground, drove back over the body, then 2 people jumped out the back and threw the body in the back seat. My husband jumped back in our car and turned around to follow them while I explained what happened to the 911 operator. We lost them in a nearby neighborhood. We didn't hear anything about it after that. I was about 7 years old. Me and my brother were playing video games. The TV is close to the gate so we could see everything that was happening out there. A guy was riding a bike and a man with a motorcycle helmet came and shoot the guy in the back. He fell on the ground and tried to run, but the guy shot him 2 more times and he was dead. It was so surreal I didn't even heard anything. I just froze in place and couldn't take my eyes away. My brother had to pull me by the arm to the back of the house because I couldn't even move. I didn't even believe it was real until I saw the police there removing the body. I was a very naive and inexperienced 22-year-old white middle-class girl from small-town Mississippi. I had taken a job after grad school at Wheelock College, now BU, in Dorchester/South Boston as an early intervention specialist. Basically, I worked with at-risk and/or developmentally delayed infants and toddlers. In a very superficial nutshell, I helped their parents create educational plans for them to use in the home and helped them get into appropriate Head Start or pre-K programs. Basically, I played with babies all day and did a lot of paperwork. One Friday afternoon in July, I was scheduled to see a 33-month-old whose family I had been having trouble connecting with. This matters because he was due to age out of the program at 36 months and then I couldn't help them get placements anywhere. In turn, this meant that the child who needed educational assistance wouldn't be able to get government-funded placement in a classroom somewhere in the city until first grade. That's a big gap when you already have a developmental delay. Anyway, it's Friday. It's July something 1997. It's nearly 5 p.m. I'm a dumbass white girl completely out of my element in a pretty crime-ridden neighborhood in Dorchester. It's fucking hot and tempers are high. Just as I'm tuning into the street, I see a white sedan fly off from the curb in front of the house I'm supposed to be at while someone is pulling a gun back inside the car. Stupid, dumbass me pulls up in front of the house and gets out to grab my bag of toys and my files. Just as I'm pulling my bags out, it hits me that there are about 20 people surrounding this man in a semicircle screaming and holding him up. And he's bleeding and gasping for air. So, me, remember middle-class naive white girl from small-town MS who had never even met a Jewish person until moving to Boston, I get back in my car as quietly as possible and just sort of drive away. Honestly, I was in shock and had no clue what to do. In the next block over there happened to be some cops sitting in front of a business, so I park beside them and walk over and say in my ridiculously thick accent, hey you all? Well, I was just at blah blah address and I think I saw somebody get shot and then this white car sped away. And I was supposed to go see this baby living there, but I kinda think maybe I shouldn't? What do y'all think? They look at each other and then look at me like I'm the dumbest rock this side of the moon and then they say, you need to go home right this minute and do not come back to this area this late in the day in the summer again. This was right before cell phones were becoming ubiquitous and was actually what prompted me to get my first cell phone. When I was a fourth grader, I was sitting out on my porch with my biological father. I don't remember why we were out so late, it was a school night. We were just talking and we heard around 6 gunshots, just a few feet away from us. Our neighbor, who was smoking on his porch, was shot 4 times. I later found out that he was shot in the neck and one of the bullets ricocheted when it hit the ground. It almost hit us but we didn't notice in the moment. There's still a little hole in the cement from the bullet. I remember my father trying to rush me inside but I saw a little bit of the man. I didn't see blood but the look on his face still scares me. It's been 6 years. The person didn't die but I watched the man be brutally stabbed while I was in prison. Apparently he was poised to take charge of the Crips on the compound but wasn't part of the same set as the others. He was stabbed over and over and over, no less than 50 times. He was curled up screaming help at the top of his lungs, but if anybody were to help you would most likely be stabbed too. I hadn't been in prison a month and it was definitely the most horrifying thing I've ever seen. I've witnessed a murder when I was 19, 5 years ago. It was just a regular man with his wife or girlfriend, I don't know exactly. I was hanging out with my friends in bar, they were there too. They have left the bar for 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes passed we have left it too, to smoke a cig and head home. We saw how they were arguing with 2 dudes. As I could figure, they have insulted his wife. They were about 14 meters from us. I've literally dropped my cigarette from mouth, when one dude have hit that poor guy in his jaw, and another one stabbed him about 7 times. His wife was screaming in horror. One of our friends, he is a police officer nowadays, rushed to them, we followed. Those punks ran away, we didn't even try to get them. We had no weapons. Dude was bleeding and moaned in pain, and we could not do anything. One of us called ambulance while me and my cop friend tried to stop pouring blood. Dude didn't make it. I don't know if those degenerates are behind the bars or free. I'm not surprised, though, but it was a little unexpected. Poor dude. I was at my aunt's house alone 1980s, sun beating down on my skin. I do a few laps around the pool with the door unlocked, but suddenly something tells me to lock my door so I do. About 30 minutes later I hear the front door's doorknob turn and shake, but I think nothing of it. I looked outside just to be safe, and I see someone shooting my neighbor dead on his lawn. Later that night I learned the person was checking for unlocked doors in houses. To this day I think I could have been the dead neighbor on the lawn. Was visiting a cousin unannounced. I said hey after walking through the back door in the kitchen and went to raid their fridge. Heard a gunshot go off and drop to the floor. I didn't know where the shot came from, so I assumed someone outside was popping off. I crawled to the living room and realized he had shot himself through the mouth. I look back now and I wish I would have shouted louder or made a better effort to greet him. He wasn't the kind of person to do something like that if others were around.